Just in case you're wondering, this big black thing is my dog. It's not some disembodied soul here. There was once a pious woman who had been generous to the holy souls in purgatory. When she was dying, she was burdened by a deathbed depression where she thought that there was no hope for her soul. Simultaneously, there was a concentrated effort by the powers of hell to drive the pious woman to lose faith and to think that our Lord would never have mercy on her. This was done in a bid to reduce her to the mortal sin of despair so the demons could claim her soul. Suddenly, the pious woman saw the souls of thousands of supporters who assured her that she could attain the heavenly prize. She asked them who they were. "We are the souls which you have delivered from purgatory. We, in our turn, come to help you, and very soon we shall conduct you to paradise." The pious woman's heart was gladdened, and soon afterwards she died in enviable happiness. I would like to help you also to have compassion for the poor souls in purgatory by telling you two of my favorite documented stories about them. The first is about a pious servant woman, and the second is about a Polish prince who was an avowed atheist. The Catholic Men's Podcast, helping you find good works of literature for the Catholic gentleman. I'm taking these true purgatory stories from the book Read Me or Rue It by Father Paul O'Sullivan. This excellent work has the approval of His Eminence the Cardinal Patriarch of Lisbon in 1936, who wrote, "We approve and recommend with all our heart the beautiful little book Read Me or Rue It. Although small, it's destined to do great good among Catholics, many of whom are incredibly ignorant of the great doctrine of purgatory. It's our earnest desire that every Catholic should read this little book and spread it about as widely as possible," which is exactly what I'm trying to do here. The first story is about a poor servant girl in France named Jeanne Marie. She had once heard a sermon on the Holy Souls which made an indelible impression on her mind. She was deeply moved by the thought of the intense and unceasing sufferings the poor souls endure, and was horrified to see how cruelly they are neglected and forgotten by their friends on earth. Among other things the priest stressed was that many souls who are quite near to their release, one Mass might suffice to set them free, are oftentimes long detained. It may be for years, just because the last needful suffrage has been withheld or forgotten or neglected. With her simple faith, Jeanne Marie resolved that, cost what it might, she would have a Mass said for the poor souls every month, especially for the soul nearest to heaven. She earned little, and it was sometimes difficult to keep her promise, but she never failed. On one occasion, she went to Paris with her mistress, and there fell ill, so that she was obliged to go to the hospital. Unfortunately, the illness proved to be a long one, and her mistress had to return home, hoping that her sick maid would soon rejoin her. When at last the poor servant was able to leave the hospital, all she had left of her scanty earnings was 1 franc. What was she to do? Where to turn? Suddenly the thought flashed across her mind that she had not had her usual monthly Mass offered for the holy souls in purgatory. But she had only 1 franc. That was little enough to buy her food. Yet her confidence that the holy souls would not fail her triumphed. She made her way into a church and asked a priest just about to say Mass if he would offer it for the holy souls. He consented to do so, never dreaming that the modest alms offered was the only money the poor girl possessed. At the conclusion of the holy sacrifice, our heroine left the church. A wave of sadness clouded her face. She felt utterly bewildered. It was then that a young gentleman, touched by her evident distress, asked her if she was in trouble and if he could help. She told her story briefly and ended by saying how much she desired work. Somehow she felt consoled at the kind way in which the young man listened to what she said, and she fully recovered her confidence. "I am delighted beyond measure," he said, "to help you. I know a lady who is even now looking for a servant. Come with me." And so saying, he led her to a house not far distant and bade her ring the bell, assuring her that she would find work. In answer to her ring, the lady of the house herself opened the door and inquired what Jeanne Marie wanted. "Madam," she said, "I've been told that you're looking for a servant. I have no work and should be glad to get the position." The lady was amazed and replied, "Who could have told you that I needed a servant? It was only a few minutes ago that I had to dismiss my maid, and that at a moment's notice. You didn't meet her?" "No, madam. The person who informed me that you required a servant was a young gentleman." "Impossible," exclaimed the lady. "No young man, in fact, no one at all could have known that I needed a servant." "But madam," the girl answered excitedly, pointing to a picture on the wall, "that's the young man who told me." "Why, child, that's my only son who's been dead for more than a year." "Dead or not," asserted the girl with deep conviction in her voice, "it was he who told me to come to you, and he even led me to the door. See the scar over his eye? I would know him anywhere." Convinced at last of the truth of what Jeanne Marie had told her, the lady received her with open arms. "Come," she said, "though not as my servant, but as my dear daughter. You have sent my darling boy to heaven. I have no doubt that it was he who brought you to me." And now on to my second story, which is called The Polish Prince. A Polish prince, who for some political reason had been exiled from his native country, bought a beautiful castle and property in France. Unfortunately, he had lost the faith of his childhood, and was at the time of our story engaged in writing a book against God and the existence of the afterlife. Strolling one evening in his garden, he came upon a poor woman weeping bitterly. He questioned her as to the cause of her grief. "Ah, Prince," she replied, "I'm the wife of John, your former steward, who died 2 days ago. He was a good husband to me, and a faithful servant to your highness. His sickness was long, and I spent all our savings on the doctors, and now I have nothing left to get masses said for his soul." The prince, touched by her grief, said a few kind words, and though professing no longer to believe in the afterlife, gave her some gold coins to have masses said for her husband's soul. Some time after, it was again evening, and the prince was in his study working feverishly at his terrible book. He heard a loud rap at the door, and without looking up, called out to the visitor to come in. The door slowly opened, and a man entered and stood facing the prince's writing table. On glancing up, the prince saw, to his utter amazement, John, his dead steward, looking at him with a kind smile. "Prince," he said, "I came to thank you for the masses you enabled my wife to have said for my soul. Thanks to the saving blood of Christ which was offered for me, I am now going to heaven, but God has allowed me to come and thank you for your generous alms." He then added impressively, "Prince, there is a God, a future life, a heaven, and a hell." Having said these words, he disappeared. The prince fell upon his knees and poured forth a fervent credo, saying, "I believe in God." Hopefully these stories will convince you to offer up a plenary indulgence for a soul in purgatory, and also to pray for them every single day. St. Padre Pio once said, "The holy souls are eager for the prayers of the faithful, which can gain indulgences for them. Their intercession is powerful. Pray unceasingly. We must empty purgatory." Special thanks to my friend Mr. Matthew Taylor for bringing this book to my attention, and thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to hear the story about a man-eating beast in France who was only stopped through Mary's intercession, just click on the link above me here. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.